I have come today to show you, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, to show you how to make a simple fabric cover, journal cover. And there are so many different ways to do this. I'm just going to show you a very simple way and how we can also include a closure with that. So I'm going to use the same fabric inside and out. I've got one here that it shows you can use a different fabric on the inside. You don't have to use the same fabric. And I am using a kind of medium weight, this is a vintage fabric, a medium weight cotton style fabric. It's a reasonable thickness. And I have cut a piece of cardstock. Now I have an A6 signature here. It's not finished, but it's the start of an A6 signature, and this is going to be the A6 cover. So I have cut my cardstock 22 centimeters by 15.2 centimeters, and I apologize if you use inches. My ruler is in centimeters as well, so I can't even tell you what that is in inches. But that's how big I've made it. Now I've cut the cardstock and I have folded it in half, because it's easier to fold it in half when it's cardstock than it is once it's covered in fabric. It's difficult to get it exact. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is decide which of the fabrics I want as the front cover, and I think I want this one. And that would make this the inside. So I'm turning that over and I'm going to put my fabric onto it. Now I always, going back to how many different ways there are you can do this, what you can do is the front cover, you can cut it more precisely to start with, you can stitch it, and then you can heat and bond it to your cover. So that's one way of doing it. But you absolutely wouldn't want to put heat and bond through your sewing machine because it is very sticky. The other way you can do it is you can put a small amount of glue and then you can stick your cover before you sew it. I tend not to do that. One, because there's always the risk that the Fabri-Tac will show through. Two, I don't really want to put it through my machine if I don't have to. Although Fabri-Tac is not too bad, I've found. But that's my personal choice, to put Fabri-Tac through my machine. I quite like having 2 layers of stitching on the inside, so that's what I'm going to do. So because I'm going to do a zigzag stitch on the outside, I'm going to do a straight stitch first of all on the inside. So I apologise about the camera angle. I know it's not brilliant. I'm just trying to get it into a reasonable position. So what I do is I start with the inside cover fabric face down, and I start by sewing the short edge. So I'm just going to pop this into my machine and I'm going to sew. Now I put a little bit of pressure on the fabric. I pull it fairly taut, so we don't get too much gathering. You're always going to get that, especially on the inside. If you're putting fabric on the inside, unless you glue, you will get some kind of what's the word? Sorry, I'm not quite with it today, but I did say I would do this tutorial for someone on my Facebook group, so I'm doing what I said I would do. And again, I'm holding the fabric a little bit taut, so we don't get too much bubbling on the inside of the fabric. This is the second time I've done this video, because the first time I was just like blah, 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 blah. I just wasn't speaking proper English. And again, I'm pulling the fabric a little bit tight as I sew the third row. Oh, gone one too fast. I'm just going to go back one. And final row. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the corner and just over stitch that first bit. So there we have part one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my scissors, and as you can see, we've got quite a nice piece of taut fabric on the inside. Now I am just going to leave about 1/2 centimetre all the way round. Now what I would normally do is I would normally grab my big old ruler and my rotary cutter, and I would use my ruler to cut my edges, but I'd have to get out my other mat, and I don't have a huge amount of space on my desk with my sewing machine here, so I'm just going to hand cut it. Just do it by eye. I don't like the covers to look too perfect anyway. I like my covers to be quite rustic looking. So that's that. Let's get those scissors out of the way. So you can now see we have the inside of our journal cover. So before I go ahead and put this on, I'm going to add a closure, and I put it on the outside so it's got the cover to kind of protect it as you tie it closed. I've got the centre there. So what I'm going to do is just kind of eyeball this. I'm not putting the glue on the spine because I know I'm going to put a stitch there. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of glue either side. Now this will absolutely show through. You can always put a tie closure on the outside, it doesn't have to go on the inside, but I just wanted to do this one this way to give you another little option of what you can do. Move that out of the way. I'm not going to glue right to the very end. I'm just going to run a little bead of glue there. That nice little tail. Stick that down. And the same this side. Pop that down there. There we go. So I haven't brought the glue right close to the edge. So I'm going to lay my fabric down, that's the actual cover, and then I'm going to pop this on top. I'm just going to move that aside while I bring the sewing machine back in. Make sure that's in view. I know I can film this on my phone, but the editing time takes so long. It would take me 4 times as long to do this video than it does just to edit it than it does actually to film the video. So I want a zigzag stitch on the outside. I keep the inside cover out because I now know where my edge is. So I'm switching to a zigzag stitch. And you kind of have to guesstimate where you want your stitch to be because obviously we can't see the outside of the cover. Just line that up, and I just follow that same process. You need to make sure you don't sew over your closure because I've done that before. So I'm just going to hold the fabric a little bit taut and stitch. And I'm stitching just kind of over that straight line that I did earlier because I know that's going to take me fairly close to the edge of the journal cover. I think I need one more stitch that side, maybe 2. That's okay. And then again I'm just pulling this fabric underneath a little bit taut, so we're going to have a nice even cover. And it doesn't matter if your stitching goes off of your cardstock in places, that's still going to hold that nice and tight in there. Yep, perfect. And again, pulling the fabric a little bit taut. And then the final edge. I'm just going to spin this round and just over stitch that first part. Take that out. I'm just going to move that down. Okay, so now we're going to cut around this cover, but we need to make sure we don't cut our closure. Oh, I hope I haven't got my head in there. See, I haven't done my roots or my hair this morning. I'm still in my PJs. Not having a fab day today. The good thing about using two fabrics exactly the same is if you haven't cut them identical, it's not really going to notice. Just really careful I don't cut that closure. I mean, this is a really simple but pretty cover. And then we've got our crease in our fabric, and this is going to help hold quite nicely because it's over the cardstock. So we've got our tie closure, and we've got 2 rows of stitching on the inside and just a single zigzag stitch around the outside. Now you can go ahead and do all sorts of things to this. You can add laces if you wanted to. You could put the lace, I would just lightly glue this into place and then stitch it before I did the front cover if I wanted a lace edge on there. You can do your collaging, you can add anything you want to this. If you wanted to put pockets on the inside, what I would suggest is you sew the pockets to the inside cover before you sew it onto the journal, onto the cardstock, or you can stitch the fabric, which is something I do quite frequently, is sew the fabric to some cardstock or some paper, stitch it and then glue it into place. But there you go, that's a basic fabric covered journal. And where's my insert? That's going to fit in there perfectly. So that's exactly what we want. So I hope you found that useful. I hope it was a help to anybody who wanted to know how to do it. I will be back soon, probably not today, but definitely tomorrow. I'm almost finished. I've been working on an envelope nature journal, which I hope to get finished today. I've actually got 2 started, but I'll only finish one today. So I will be back with another video very soon. Take care, have a great day.